A very warm welcome to you on behalf of AI Policy Labs to our podcast series on a very pertinent topic today, AI and SDGs. I'm Jia Qian. I'm currently a postgraduate student at King's College London. And this is my colleague Krutika, a research assistant in the AI Policy Labs. Just to give you a brief, AI Policy Lab is a global initiative which has been set up with the version to explore emerging technologies and access the impact of intelligence automation in digitalization and AI, unlike policy making, implementation, and governance. Our primary focus is to explore the role of AI for public goods and AI for social good. Given the rise of automation and the use of AI and other emerging technologies, it became extremely important to ask ourselves, with only a decade to achieve the 70 UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. What role can AI play in achieving those? Will the new generation of technology take us closer or away from our global goals? With the version to build discussions on those important issues, so we have launched this program, AI and SDGs, which will comprise of podcasts, webinars, research reports, expert opinions, and articles to be published on our global channel in partnership with Graduate Institute Geneva. At present, the event has been officially launched. Welcome to get podcasts and other content on the website www.aipolicylabs.com. This is free and open to everyone. As part of the program, this podcast series is being conducted with the aim to understand the potential of AI in meeting the SDGs and currently the challenges that is might pose to stifle the same progress we are aiming to achieve. Today we are focused on the SDG 10. The reduce inequality and AI, given the vast experience of our guests in the field. In industry, our experts today we have with Abhishek Gupta and Allison Cohen. Welcome. Abhishek is the founder of Montreal AI Ethics Institute and Machine Learning Energy at Microsoft, where he serves as the CSE AI Ethics Review Board. His research focuses on applied technical and policy methods to address ethics, safety, inclusivity concerns in using AI in different fields. He has established the largest community-driven public consultation group on AI ethics in the world that has made significant contributions to the development of many initiatives in the field of responsible AI. His work on building public competence for AI ethics has been recognized by governments from North America, Europe, Asia, and so on. Well, Allison Cohen holds degree in international development and international affairs from the University of Toronto and the University of Armstrong, and now works as project manager AI for Humanity at the Quebec AI Institute. Also a consultant at AI Global, former AI strategy consultant Deloitte, and AI ethical research at Montreal AI Ethics Institute. In her article, the State of AI Ethics Report details the research and the reporting surrounding various domains related to the ethics of AIs, including AI and society, base and and the justice, disinformation, human and AI, lab impact, provides risk, and the future of AI ethics. This is really closer to our topic for this podcast. So I believe Abhishek and Allison are insightful ethic thinkers in the field of AI. They will provide new perspective on how we think about AI and reduce inequality. We are really delighted to have you here today. So, well, after the above background information, let's move on to today's interview. Please, Krutika.
Yeah, given the expertise of both Allison and Abhishek, today we're going to focus on SDG 10, reduce inequality in AI. And let's start with the questions. So Abhishek, the first question is, could you take us through what SDG 10 entails and what possible elements of inequalities are we talking about?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, so it's great that we talk about SDG 10, especially if we're looking at it from the lens of how AI is being deployed in the world, because when we're talking about SDG 10, we're talking about reducing inequality, not only amongst countries, but within a country as well. And that, I think, is one area that at the moment I feel is a little underexplored, in the sense that we talk a lot about how AI deployment varies across countries, but we talk much less frequently about how there are actually stark differences in how AI is being deployed within a nation and how that's perhaps exacerbating inequity. So, we can take the case of India, where, some of the work being done by different government organizations in making accessible certain, outcomes from legal proceedings and other government documents is sort of restricted to a small subset of languages. And that has, many underlying causes. But that serves as an example of how deployment of AI can actually sort of exacerbate inequities when it comes to the accessibility of knowledge, just by virtue of who we're making that accessible to that knowledge. On the other side, if we're looking and talking about, well, how do we achieve this? In fact, there is a very positive spin to it, in the sense that we can reduce those inequalities. The way we do that is by enlarging the corpus of languages, in this case, that serves many of the served regions within India, for example, which will make this knowledge accessible rather than sticking to the two official languages of India, which is English and Hindi. And so making that knowledge more accessible is one pathway towards reducing inequality. Of course, there are many others, but I'd love to hear what Allison has to say on this as well.
Yeah, well, great introduction. And you're absolutely right in saying that some of the biggest instances of inequality we're seeing with AI is really within countries themselves, who has access to knowledge, how different communities are, how they interact with this technology, how much data this AI technology has on each individual group, and how it may be biased against a variety of groups within a country. I think it is really fascinating, and it's something that in pursuit of SDG goal number 10 is going to have to be overcome. So also, just to sort of drive home the point of just how disparate within countries equality can be, or access to equality can be. We can even see with the COVID-19 pandemic, the types of communities that are disproportionately falling ill, disproportionately dying, have access to good quality healthcare. And so that really just goes to show, even within even very small countries, there are massive discrepancies. And then between countries with this pandemic, we're seeing that, Canada is saying that it's going to have to pay for developing countries to have access to a vaccine, which is obviously a very concerning demonstration of that inequality, that there is a lack of access to vaccinations for this pandemic. But yeah, I would just sort of leave it at that as just going to demonstrate the amount of work that needs to be done with respect to AI and just more generally when it comes to a lack of access to equality within and among countries.
So in your opinion, like in the society with the rapid development of AI right now, what do you think would be the role of AI when it comes to reducing this inequality, like you said, within the country as well as across countries?
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, first of all, I think that AI has a massive role to play in reducing inequality within and among countries. I think part of that is because we know that AI is going to have such a dramatic, I guess, AI right now is sort of almost in its infancy, and it's going to dramatically catapult and really drive the economy forward. And so if individuals who previously didn't have access to education, for example, or were disproportionately or disenfranchised from sort of a broader economic narrative, this represents a huge opportunity for people to start entering into a field that will have massive implications for our global and local economies. So I think that right now, the more that we can introduce a diversity of people and voices in this space, we can actually begin to have a very profound impact on equality between groups that previously had access to, just these massive industries. And working in these massive industries. I think that AI also, just by virtue of its scale, can be deployed at little to no cost in some instances and create just profound impacts on people's lives. For example, there's this one instance that I really like referring to, which is AI can actually model previous human behavior in order to infer how likely an individual is to repay their loans. So even if someone doesn't necessarily have a credit score, hasn't previously had access to traditional banking institutions, all of a sudden this AI modeling can actually result in them being included in the banking sector and having access to funds for, which is critical for economic empowerment. I think there's this crazy number, like 1.7 billion people currently don't have access to the traditional banking institutions or any banking for that matter. So there's really great potential there to start including people and providing them access with services that are really critical. Maybe I'll leave it at that and pass it to you, Abhishek.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think those are all great points, right? And to me, where I feel AI is going to play a significant role is positioning it as an augmentation of human capabilities rather than a replacement. And I think that's particularly important for nations that are in, the category of what are called developing nations, where we need to augment the capabilities of people who are already doing a lot of work, who are on the ground, and rather than looking to replace their labor capacities in the interest of perhaps cost saving or efficiencies, it's, to me, an instrument to scale impact. To give you an example of that, think about the sort of uneven distribution of access to high quality healthcare, right? Particularly, again, if we talk about a country like India with a two-tier medical system, we are looking at people who, who are affluent, who do have the capability to access private healthcare services, and sort of contrast that to a place like Canada, which provides sort of universal healthcare for everybody, no matter your ability to pay. So in a place like India, perhaps you are constrained in terms of not only if you're accessing the public tier of healthcare services, in terms of the capacity of the doctors to service as many patients as they receive, but also the quality of healthcare that's provided, which is again exacerbated by the fact that they have to process a lot of patients in a single day. Here, what you can do with AI is twofold, right? One, at these points of service, you can enhance the ability of the doctor to service more patients with a higher quality of service by perhaps automating some of their more routine tasks, by perhaps automating some of the triaging that happens, by perhaps also automating some of the scanning procedures and processing some of those scans. The other potentially more interesting use of AI in this context is how you can equip junior doctors, junior healthcare providers with the ability to sort of upskill or rather not upskill, but sort of deliver the quality of healthcare that one might expect from a more seasoned practitioner, and also distributing that to remote places where, again, as Allison was saying, it's fairly easy to, of course, scale and deploy software. Of course, with all the caveats of having adequate access to internet and electricity and everything else. But if you are able to meet some of those challenges, then it really does give you a channel, a mechanism to take some of those high quality services and deliver them remotely without necessarily needing to have the sort of more seasoned practitioners be able to travel to all of those places and be able to provide those services on site. So I think that's an example where again we're trying to augment existing capacities of people rather than replacing them.
I think this fits perfectly with the next question, like what is the best way to implement AI in the less developed countries to ensure that they're not left behind in the AI transition? We could also look at this as within the same country, how do we get all the other smaller locations up to the same scale so that they are not left behind in the transition as well?
Right, and I'll sort of just build on what I said, as you said, right? I think it's what's important, and again, if we're looking at societies that are situated in underdeveloped and developing nations, there are already sort of vast inequalities that are in place, and the way that we achieve prosperity and perhaps even acceptance, let's say, of AI, we need to focus on the needs of those who are currently underserved, rather than trying to address esoteric cases that meet the needs of the few, and the few being the more affluent. And it is a sort of microcosm of the larger tech ecosystem, which is, fortunately or unfortunately, dominated by Silicon Valley, where a lot of the services that are created and deployments of technology that are created are targeted and tailored towards the needs of the affluent, right? So getting meals delivered within 2 hours, or Uberizing everything, or Airbnb-ing everything. And I get it, they bring about value, but they don't really solve some of the more fundamental needs and challenges that we encounter in societies that are unfortunately inherently unequal, especially in places like underdeveloped and developing nations. And which is why I think when we're talking about, let's say, AI innovation in a place like India, it's very important that we emphasize some of these use cases and scenarios first, urging entrepreneurs, urging researchers to work on those challenges first, rather than chasing how you can make a Snapchat filter fit your face better by using facial recognition, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are all really great points. And like you said, Abhishek, a disturbing trend that I'm noticing is that, I guess sort of similar to healthcare, is we're seeing all the money going towards issues that people in the developed world are facing. Because that's where the most money is. And, but I think maybe if we sort of reframe our thinking on this and think more about how leaders in developing world communities can lead the charge, I think that, we might be in a more hopeful place. I know that an organization that was recently formed, the Global Partnership on AI, they have a Montreal office, and their focus there is really on responsible AI development and proliferation. And they're looking at how they can bring in a panel of international experts who are located or specialized in developing world contexts, who can really help sort of drive this narrative forward and shift or focus the progress of their countries and their communities vis-a-vis AI development. So I would say that there's lots of hope there. There are many people in developing world contexts who are doing incredible work. Even just on a personal note, I know several people working in these contexts who have started up, because they obviously see these massive gaps that exist and places where AI can play a huge role in their societies, specifically regarding equality and empowerment. And, I think if we can maximize education with respect to these countries, I think that there is plenty of talent and ambition there to sort of forward this narrative, which is great. And then also, I think that, as Abhishek said earlier, one of the big constraints regarding AI in developing world contexts is access to internet, the ability to, just by virtue of there not necessarily being as much digital infrastructure as there is here, not being able to collect nearly as much data with which to run AI models and algorithms. But I know that there are a variety of projects that leverage sort of Internet of Things infrastructure, both in the agricultural industry and I think generally in infrastructure maintenance, which has been doing really incredible things in developing world contexts. For example, monitoring, I think, I'm trying to remember the name of this project, but I think that there was a company called Data Robot that partnered with a nonprofit organization focused on access to water, and they monitored the infrastructure, the water infrastructure in communities and preemptive maintenance. And those types of things, I think, are having a huge impact and are demonstrating a capacity in these contexts that we may not always see. But I think it's important that we really highlight these types of projects so that we can make sure that, sufficient resourcing and, sufficient interest in these contexts can grow so that we can start to see at least some lessening of the inequality that we're seeing now between countries.
So sort of to continue this forward, this would be the last question. What are the possible measures or recommendations that you propose that would enable efficient use of AI and emerging technologies to achieve this SDG?
Yes, off the top of my head, I would say that one of the, so there's lots of big issues with respect to AI. Within countries, I think a large degree of it has to do with the quality or the ethical consideration that's been given when these technologies are being developed. So issues of bias and fairness and transparency have huge implications for a variety of communities. So one of my recommendations would absolutely be to create more tangible, practical, ethical guidelines with respect to developing and deploying AI technology. And that's some of the work that Abhishek does and I've done at the Montreal AI Ethics Institute. And with respect to, addressing the fact that this market right now, AI tends to be a monopolistic market. Companies have exclusive access to crazy amounts of data that allows them to offer significantly more value by virtue of more accurate AI algorithms. So if there were some sort of data sharing scheme that will allow new entrants to enter the market and make this, or at least allow for shared prosperity, I think that that would be an interesting way of increasing equality as well with respect to this industry.
Abhishek, we would like to know your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, no, and I think, you know, I particularly like Allison's point around shared prosperity, right? And that's something that's especially dear to me in all the work that I do. And I think the way to go about it, and I wrote something about it last year. One of the mechanisms to achieve that is participatory design, right? And that's something that is a well-established notion in the social sciences, but unfortunately has yet to gain sufficient traction within the technical community as a mechanism for achieving, reduction in inequality. Additionally, I also did an interview a few days ago with the Times of India, talking about how we need to have participation of the social sciences within the development of these solutions, so that they are really geared towards solving more concrete problems that face society, rather than chasing after the next state-of-the-art model or achieving results on a benchmark data set, which is great for making fundamental or making progress in fundamental research and development. But when it comes to the real world, we need to have that context in place, and that does come from the folks who are well versed in the social sciences. And it's a little unfortunate, again, perhaps I've been too heavy in my focus in this interview on India, but it's been on my mind recently. And I think we definitely need to elevate the stature of the social sciences in India. It's an unfortunate circumstance in India where we don't value the social sciences enough compared to some of the quote unquote harder pursuits of knowledge. And unless that changes, I think, especially in a place like India, we'll still struggle from making meaningful change, because we wouldn't have invited the right stakeholders to that table. And we need to do that as the first step if we are to make meaningful progress. So that's sort of my, my sticking point there, is that we need to get the right people onto the table. And it's hard work, but it needs to be done.
Yeah. And I totally agree with you. I think when you speak in the context of India, like you said, social sciences may be lacking to get them on the table. At the same time, I think when it comes to policy, we also have technologists lacking, and it's only one perspective. So there needs to be like sort of an amalgamation of the two and the rest of the stakeholders as well. To wrap this up, thank you very much for all talking to us about the balance, how to maintain the balance between ethical development of AI, as well as how to make sure we're going in the right direction so that no man left behind. There can be no sustainable and healthy technological development without equality between and within countries. And thank you for shedding that light on that. It's really important to think about equality within the country as well. We will definitely adopt and optimize your suggestions and measures in future policy research and reports. And we look forward to your continued cooperation with us. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
It's our pleasure. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Okay.